as you know, Quickie Baby and I share the same opinion. It's one of the best tier 9 heavy tanks. The reason it has monster damage output is monster pen, is monster heat rounds, is okay heavy, but you can see the speed of it. I'm on the same speed as the T-34-3 medium tank, and I got penned by the T-26E4 super Persian, which is unlucky. But you can just go aggressive like an E75 sometimes if they don't shoot your lower plate. The lower plate is big, but you know, from afar the armor on the frontal glacis is strong enough to bounce. Is a better all rounder than the IS-8. The IS-8 seems like a bloody cat in front of this tank. This tank is in terms of firepower, mobility, is superior than the IS-8, except climbing speed, because the horsepower per ton ratio is lower. But you know, it doesn't matter when the this tank has better armor than the IS-8. The IS-8 get penned so often. The frontal armor on this is effectively 225-ish, excluding the lower plate, of course. So you get quite a lot of bounces, but the tank lower plate is bloody big, so you get penned very easily. But then, you know, every tank has its weakness, but then this tank is like long, so it's hard to work the terrain, etc. But then, you know, you can't have it all when you have monster gun, monster speed, monster everything. It is one of the best tank in my opinion. The penetration is all on the lower plate. It's got a monster turret as well. The turret takes a beating. Like, this guy was driving a T-111E5, spamming heat on my turret, and he didn't pen. And I pen him every time with my heat round. So that was just GG for him. Because you know what, this tank, when you meet equal tiers, you don't need heat round, of course, but you just watch this. AP round, okay, no heat. AP. Look at that. 80-15 armor seems like garbage in front of this tank. And the speed of this thing really can ram the shit out of most tanks. It's like E50M ramming, except it's lighter. But it gets the speed quickly, and the gun depression for me is not a big problem because I practice gun depression work for a long time. So if you're okay with gun depression work, then this can be the best tank for you. But then E75 in terms of firepower is equal to this tank, but then this tank has slightly of a better gun because it reloads slightly faster, it has slightly more damage per minute, and also it has faster speed, so it's easier to play blitz it out. And I'm going ultra aggressive, and I know it, but this tank really can take the shit to their face to them. And in my opinion, I love the way you play this thing. You gotta go aggressive. If you die, you die, but then you see I'm on 5 kills. I don't really give a shit anymore. What else do I have to say about this tank? I just love it. It's just such a solid tank. If you get hold down, then yeah, it's invincible. The IS-8, in my opinion, is crap in front of this. I grinded the IS-8 and this at the same time, and guess what? I would rate this 5 stars. I would rate the other one 3. Why? Because IS-8 has nothing really much better than this tank. This in all kind of categories, they're the same sort of similarity tanks, but this thing is better. Firepower, mobility, I think, I'm not sure, they either have equal speed or this thing actually have better terrain resistance or some shit like that. It accelerates faster, it feels more mobile anyway. The IS-8 is smaller and shorter, but then this tank has, I think, maybe better side armor than the IS-8, but I don't know, the gun makes up for all of it. That tank do 440, you do 490. 50 damage difference is a lot. You can go up to 600 alpha with this gun if you get lucky, a really high roll. And Actually, not 600, just below 600 or maybe 600. I don't know, but I think it rolls up really high anyway. Uh, 50 damage although doesn't seem a lot, but you can think about it. A 250 damage gun is very different from a 200 damage gun. So I'll really recommend you to play this tank. If you're already on the Chinese heavy line, keep grinding it. The 110 is a beauty tank. The IS2 is the same as the IS, so there's shit aim time, but everything else is pretty good. This tank, the only bad thing about it is that climbing up is comparable to the IS-8 slower, not by much slower, but when you go downhill, if you go flat ground, it goes 40, 50 easily with decent frontal armor. If okay, you don't get penned on the lower plate. Our bounced horters, our bounced objects from the front. The turret is monstrous. Is OP as hell. This tank. I feel really lucky that this tank is not played by many of the players because they don't play this line. But then this thing, I think it's almost like a. For me, I personally like this tank more than the Object 714, just because it's more fun. Object 714 it does monster damage, but you camp whole game long, and there's not much like skill involved in it. This tank, you feel really rewarded as well, and it's easy to overcome difficulties because you just have such a monster armor. If you're climbing up and the enemy doesn't have a lower plate shot on you, you're pretty goddamn safe. Artillery is the worst enemy of this tank because the tank can get destroyed by RT easily because it has many medium tank parts. It's very similar to medium heavy, so it looks like a heavy, but the actual armor on the side, etc., is low. So if the enemy artillery shoots you in the engine neck, you're most likely to die. But then you can't have it all, as I said. This tank is monster. I love it. It's definitely a keeper. I don't know if I would like the 131, but apparently it's not that good. But then this tank is definitely a monster. It's definitely on par with the E75. But then I have to see when I get to the E75. I'm not that far away from the E75 now. I get it within a few months or half a year. It seems quite far, but I'm on the Tiger too, so not that far away now. The E75 I've played a few times. It is strong, very strong, but then this thing has mobility and trade. So, for example, E75 it will be harder to get into the position I got into in the beginning of the game, whereas this tank can get there easier. It really depends, but E75 is still stronger in my opinion. But then this tank also has its own points, so it's all about maximizing your strength and minimizing your weakness. And if you do it perfectly and you balance it properly, it can be one of the most deadly tanks in the game. I would certainly recommend you to play it. It is just good. It's like getting yourself a Borsig. They're all good tanks. You play it right, you get rewarded. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. And thanks for watching. And tell me if you got any suggestions or recommendations or was it improvement tips or anything like that. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.